The University of Miami Athletic Department has become the poster child for everything that is wrong in big-time college athletics. It's simple to see, because here they are floundering about now with a college football program that is a complete dumpster fire in many ways, an ousted athletic director who may have done beautiful things for the chess team, but couldn't do it for the rest of the program. Finally, a president that's paying attention to what's going on at the university, which used to be every single year one of those programs that you could count on, would be in the college football playoff run, but is no longer, doesn't deserve to be there. But now we have to put in the fact, Joe, that as they look for a new head coach, which they will eventually probably, and look for a new athletic director, a friend of ours, Dave Lamont, brought it up perfectly when he said, well, it's good to see all these people talking about the athletic director, but I'm sick and tired of people dancing on the graves and dancing on the grave of Manny Diaz. He's exactly right. Manny Diaz is still the head football coach, yet people are gloating about the fact that he's going to be out real soon. We can't wait to put somebody else in. Let's get Urban Meyer or Lane Kiffin in here. Let's drop somebody in. It is this dancing on the grave which is endemic of what has happened at the University of Miami in Coral Gables. The fan base at Miami, and we're going to make sure we don't piss everybody off here, but there is a faction of the fan base in Miami which is the rank stupidest, angriest, most social media hating group of people that I've ever seen in athletics anywhere, and it affects everything across the board at the University of Miami when people think they're going to get great coaches. Joe, this is a culture that sooner or later this university has got to address more than just finding an athletic director or a coach. They've got to address the fan culture here, which is keeping people from wanting to come to Coral Gables.
Well, I mean, look, there is a Raider-esque element to portions of the Miami fan base that has not helped the university the last 15 years. They've lost recruits because of it. They've lost coaching candidates because of it. It's been allowed to fester too long. And look, social media is a lot of things. One thing it's not, it ain't social. So there is always that faction in sports that when somebody gets fired, everybody's celebrating. It's unfortunate. And look, I know Blake James. Blake's a good guy. Blake did not do a good job at Miami, and it happens. There's a lot of there's a lot of reasons why it turned out. Some things were under Blake's command to make better. Some were not. But the reality of it is, in sports, when things are not going well, changes take place. The problem that Miami has is there's a churn that's going on. Paul D, Kirby Hoke, Sean, I, of course, Blake, James. That's just in the last 15 years of
Yeah, those are the
athletic
athletic
directors.
directors, for those who don't know.
Now I'll make the assumption that Manny Diaz is not going to be back. You're looking at Manny, Al Golden, Mark Richt, who retired, but Randy Shannon, Al Golden,
Larry
all the way
Coker,
down.
we go back and
You're
back and
talking
back.
15 to 17 years of churn. There's no stability. And that has to change. And there's a lot of reasons why there isn't stability.
Well,
For a lot
let's
of
look at
years,
that.
this used to be a job that it was a springboard to something else. But that hasn't been the case since Butch Davis left, because nobody left this job as a football coach for a better job since Butch left. So we're looking at 20 years. So it's not that kind of a job. And so when fans get upset when they say, well, we're not a second tier job. Well, you have been for 20 years. So the reality of it is, how do you change that? Well, you change that with the athletic director. You have to get a guy that's more Sam Jankovic than Blake James. How do you do that in this environment? You got to write a big check. You got to give that person autonomy. You have to recognize the problems that you have inherent within the program, some of which you can't correct. Look, you're a private school with a stadium 20 plus miles and a 40-minute bus ride away from campus. Those are the realities of it. And it is a challenge. It doesn't mean you can't overcome them. It just means there's challenges. You have a lunatic portion of this fan base that has done more damage than good over the last 15 years. Somehow you got to rein that in.
Let's stay right
Whether
there
you
for a second.
start pulling people's season tickets for abusive behavior in the stands, whether you limit their, activities that they can participate in, you've got to do something. Because here's the era that we're in college sports now, Ed. Everybody's making money. I mean, everybody. You want Lane Kiffin? Lane Kiffin's making $5 million a year at Ole Miss. So you're gonna have to pay Lane Kiffin $5+ million a year to come to Miami, plus support staff, assistant coaches, recruiting budget, all of it. And whether it's Mario Cristobal, Lane Kiffin, Dave Aranda, no matter who you're bringing in, this isn't the days of we're going to go get a guy out of Pullman, Washington, nobody's ever heard of by the name of Dennis Erickson. He's going to walk into a national championship program with 42 kids on the roster that are going to play in the NFL. Those days are gone. You're getting a guy now, if you're looking to aim high, that's leaving an established program. He's not going backwards. He doesn't give a shit if it's hot or cold outside. He wants what he already has, and then some.
And what we have to point
So,
out here, though, is a guy like Lane Kiffin or any coach that you just alluded to is going to be able to make those kind of demands because there are jobs out there. There are schools willing
leverage.
to give coaches autonomy and a lot of money because they have it, even if they're smaller schools. So it's not as if all of a sudden the Miami job comes open and the coaches are going, ooh, the Miami job's open. I got to leave and drop everything to go to Miami. No, you don't, because you can go to at least 20 other schools right now and get treated better and get paid better and have a better opportunity to move your career forward than going to Miami. Miami is not a plum job anymore, and people need to understand that. Sure, it can change, but right now, it's not the be-all, get-all that people thought it was.
Well, I mean, it's not USC, it's not LSU.
Right.
It's on the level of Washington, which doesn't make it a bad job. In fact, it all gets down to the kind of person you bring in, Ed. You bring in a guy that already wants to move into the mansion that is furnished and appointed, or do you bring in the guy that says, you know what, I see that stick of dirt there and the mansion is halfway finished, but I can really make this my own deal. And that's the selling point. That's what you can do. The irony is, I'll tell you a quick story. In 2004, I had a meeting with the late athletic director, Paul D. And I said to Paul, Paul, there's an arms race going on in college athletics right now with facility development. Schools all over the country are putting millions of dollars into facilities. If Miami doesn't get in that game, you're going to fall behind. And he looked me straight in the eye and smiled and said, we don't have to do that here. We're Miami. And I said to him, Paul, if that's the prevailing attitude, you will be irrelevant by 2008. And if you look at it, that's exactly what took place.
Yes.
Miami began to get lapped. Here's the irony in 2021. Miami's got good facilities now. They have
Sure.
invested a lot of money in facilities. They're not losing the arms race because of facilities anymore. You know what they're losing the arms race in? Personnel. Go get an Alabama University media guide. Look at the number of analysts on Nick Saban's coaching staff. Makes a difference. You're putting all of these minds in a room, and you're having to compete against 3 former NFL head coaches sitting on a staff.
Well, see, and that's,
And
but let's stop there. You're right.
but I want to expand on this for 1 second. Here's where it makes a difference. You want Mario Cristobal to come home? Mario worked for Nick. Mario sees what Nick was doing, does the same thing in Oregon. He's got a team third in the country. You think Mario's coming home for a step backward or two?
No.
He wants what he already knows works. So that's going to be the challenge for Miami now. It's not the buildings. They have the buildings. It's, are we going to pump the money into the program to be competitive? And I personally, I think they're going to do that now. And the reason why I say that
But they
is
have to. Their
they've
backs
got,
are against the
they have
wall.
no other place to go.
Exactly.
And the ACC brought Miami and Florida State in, and they figured we're gold. And Florida State, in a lot of ways, held up their end when Jimbo brought in a national champion, and they played. Miami is not at all. So if you don't think the conference is putting pressure on Miami to say, guys, got to get this one right, got to hire the right AD, got to hire the right coach. You still can't get the ACC network in a lot of places. You think if Miami were to hire a Mario Cristobal or a Lane Kiffin, just using those guys as examples because they're national names, all of a sudden that doesn't make the product that the ACC is trying to sell to cable outlets, their network, more viable? Of course it does. So it's imperative that they get it right now. It's imperative that they don't make another hiring mistake, which is why hiring the athletic director first has to happen. And you have to have a guy that's a visionary. You have to have someone that is going to shake the lethargic nature of this program. And if you get that, you'll get the right football
Which
coach.
is a good point, because if you go back, and again, we're going back to what is ancient history that you and I are both aware of, and so many other people are. Sam Jankovic came in and he was a divisive influence in many ways. He was a tree shaker. He didn't give a crap what anybody thought about him, but Jankovic was able to get that sort of autonomy that he needed. And he said, we are going to add basketball. We are going to do this to the facilities. We are going to do this to go out and find it. And if you don't like it, you can fire me. And of course, they didn't, because Jankovic was successful. I don't know if those kind of athletic directors actually exist anymore, Joe. And if they do, you got to go out and find them. And again, would an athletic director as good as that want to get involved in the absolute mess that is Miami? That's what people are forgetting here, is that the program right now is a disaster. And while they can say, oh, well, we're winning national championships in badminton, I don't care. You're not getting it done in football, baseball, and basketball, which are the three
Well,
sports where you got to make your money, especially football.
well, you have to understand though, athletic directors are like coaches in the sense that they're very competitive
Yep.
and they can see this as really what it was in the 80s that Howard Schnellenberger saw it as, that Sam Jankovic saw it as, that it can be a hidden giant again. The difference is they already have 5 national championships. They have something to sell. They do have a history. For all of the problems that Miami has, what happened when Alabama played Miami to start the year? Buffalo television ratings. Because Miami still, in television's eyes, which is what rules the roost,
Right.
still something. Can they attract a Sam Jankovic-like figure today? Sure. You got to write the check. These guys are
Okay.
not,
Right.
they're just like coaches. Give me the money and I'm coming.
And the autonomy. You
And
have to give me the
But
ability
but
to
you know
make the
what? If they're going
decisions
to pay
and
an
stay out of
athletic
my face.
director what the market is paying right now,
Yes.
they're going to have no other choice but give them autonomy because they're going to take the job unless they get it. I mean, they like coaches. Those guys have options too, like a Mac Rhodes at Baylor. You find me a guy in the country. Here's what Mac Rhodes did. He took a program that in basketball, the last basketball coach had a murder that he covered up of one of his own players. Hired a guy who was squeaky clean reputation, wins a national championship. Had a football program that had a coach that was as dirty and scummy as it got in Art Briles. Okay? Brought in a guy like Matt Rule who ended up getting an NFL job. Then brought in another guy in Dave Aranda who's a star coach. Okay?
Yep.
And you want to talk about tough? Kim Mulkey won multiple national championships at Baylor. She was as close to a goddess as there was in the campus. He didn't put up with any of her crap and let her go to LSU. There's a strong personality. There's a guy. If you hired Mac Rhodes at Miami and you were a Miami fan, you go to bed at night saying, we're good. We're going to fix this. So those guys are out there. And, it's imperative that they get it. Now, I'm not associated with the program anymore. I'm not around it every day. I don't know who are going to be the people that make those hiring decisions.
And
It's not
neither
just going to
does
be the
anybody.
president.
Let's put it this way. All of
Yeah,
this
I mean,
dropping of
so
sources and this AD and this coach, absolute, total, undeniable, flaming bullshit. Because none of this is coming from inside the University of Miami program. As you have pointed out to me many times, these guys are lockdown mode. And anybody who says that they're being told something from the inside of the University of Miami is absolutely full of shit.
yeah, I mean, and one thing they're doing right now for the first time in 18 years is they're not talking. And that's
Good.
good. I mean, let everybody speculate, but you don't. But the people who are in this position to make these decisions are not talking and not leaking, and that's a good thing. Because if you are Mario Cristobal, if you are Lane Kiffin, if you are Dave Aranda, the last thing you want to do is be addressing job rumors when you're in the season. That
Exactly.
pisses them off. And the other thing is, there are times in life you have the hammer. There are times in life you are the nail. There are times in life you have leverage. There are times in life you don't. Right now, every good athletic director and head football coach has the leverage. To balance that out, if you're Miami, you got to be professional. Don't make the current jobs more difficult for those guys. Be quiet, go about your business, do your due diligence. Because, for all of us on the outside who are looking at who we may like, who may want, when you start doing due diligence on people and you find out some things about them personally that may not fit what you want, this is the reason why you have to do these things quietly. And if you do that, you have a better chance of getting the right guy than you have for the last 20 years when they have habitually gotten the wrong guy.
Let's
And
let's
so
I want to take that
that's
one.
going to be that's their biggest challenge right now, is getting the AD right. Because it isn't, as you brought up earlier, it's not just football. It's basketball. It's baseball. It's an athletic department. It's not just football.
Which
And
is why
that's
we have
going
to
to
stop
be
this
the challenge.
nonsense every time I hear one of these wingnuts go off on a line and say that Ed Reed would be the perfect athletic director. Gino Torretta would be the perfect athletic director. Alonzo Highsmith. Well, look, Alonzo works in an NFL office. That doesn't make any difference. Don't you people get it? There is a massive Grand Canyon-esque rift difference between being an assistant in a National Football League office and then coming in and running an athletic department at a major university. It's not the same thing. Because here's the guy at the athletic department who has to then worry about our sneaker contracts, who has to worry about the building moratorium, who's got to worry about the people sitting on the board of directors. You're sitting over here in the National Football League. You don't have to worry about all that. You need somebody who
And you have to
walks in
worry about
here
Title
with
IX.
experience to be able to do that. To put this, and again, it's this nonsense that drives me insane, where people always go to legacies that we have to put in here. You don't need legacies. You need people who are good at their job. And they don't have to necessarily be somebody who graduated from Coral Gables
Well, I,
or any
I
place for
laugh
that matter.
because I wrote about this. I wrote about this last week. If we had the internet when
Ugh.
Sam Jankovic got on a plane after Howard Schnellenberger left to go to Stillwater, Oklahoma, to bring a coach back who was 30 and 25, who had an 0 and 5 record to Oklahoma and Nebraska, who was running antique offense, and his name was Jimmy Johnson, the internet would have broken
Would have been
and
destroyed.
demanded Sam Jankovic be fired. And on top of it, one of the stipulations for Jimmy taking a job is he had to keep half of Howard's staff, and they mutinied on him in the first year. See, nobody who was, around now, they don't remember those days. They don't
They don't want to
remember how
remember them,
hard
Joe,
it
because they
was
look at
for
you and me
Jimmy
and they say,
Johnson.
it's ancient history. You guys are living in the past. It doesn't fly anymore here in 2021. It does. The basic concept of
The
what we're talking
concept
about
of
works.
bringing a guy from the outside, you wouldn't have known if Jimmy Johnson was going to be a great football coach from anything. You wouldn't have known. Nobody was going to predict that. Hell, I was here when half of the so-called UN insiders wanted Jimmy Johnson fired after a year because he didn't get along with Howard
Right.
Staff.
Yep.
So, and it's just, listen, hiring people is hard. Hiring people in the internet and social media era is really hard because you may think you made a
True.
great hire, and then all of a sudden there's a buried arrest record that comes out a week after you hire the guy, and you go, "Oh shit." You know what? It happens everywhere, Ed. It doesn't just happen here.
Right.
It happens everywhere. 2 years ago, Ed Ogeron is the toast of college football. 2 years and $17 million buyout later, he's out. That's how fast it changes. So for me, the one encouraging thing I've seen in the last week with Miami for the first time in 18 years is that nobody of substance is talking, which means that for once,
That way.
they're doing the thing right. Now we see where it goes. I mean, I'm one of these people who thinks that they can get it right and hire a great football coach, a kick-ass athletic director, and turn it around. It's just that they don't have a mulligan left. You have no more balls in the bag yet. You got one more ball, and you're on the 12th hole. So,
You
you
screw
can't
this
lose
one up,
that
you're in the
ball.
water.
Yeah, you're screwed. So hopefully they get it right because while I'm not involved with them anymore, I still root from afar that they get it right.